Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Brinda Devi, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Brinda Devi, Jaya Brinda Devi, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Brinda Devi.
Never mind, don't worry about it. Too many questions. Doty's falling apart. Jai, thank you. Jai Prabhupada. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivadet Hari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivadet Hari Vallabha Girivadet Hari Yasodanandana Brajagana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajagana Ranjana Brajagana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivadet Hari Vallabha Hari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivadet Hari Vallabha Yasodanandana Brajagana Ranjana Nana Brajagana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajagana Ranjana Nana Brajagana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Bhagavacharya Satarya Shishi Madha's Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Gauda Vaishnavinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Sikoshi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Ki ISKCON Founder Srila Prabhupada Ki Shishi Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Vrindavan Dham Ki Mayapur Dham Ki Navadvip Dham Ki Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jamuna Mai Ki Ganga Mahi Ki Tulsi Devi Ki Bhakta Devi Ki Shishi Radha Golokananda Ki Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Gora Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevayam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevayam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevayam. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 63, Text 42. Yas Tvam Vishrijate Martya Yas Tvam Vishrijate Martya Atmanam Priyam Ishvaram Atmanam Priyam Ishvaram Viparyaye Driyartharam Visham Atya Ritam Twagyan Yastvam Vishtrijate Martya Atmanam Priyam Ishvaram Viparyayendriyartha Visam Atyam Ritam Tajang Yastvam Vishrijate Martya Atmanam Priyam Ishvaram Viparyayendriyartha Tham Visam Atyam Ritam Tvajan Yastvam Vishrijate Martya Atmanam Priyam Ishvaram Viparyayendriyartha Tham Visam Atyamritam Tajan. All right. Anybody else? Ya. Who? Tvam. You. Vishrate. Rejects. Martha. Mortal man. Atmanam. His true self. Priyam. Dearmost. Ishvaram. Lord. Viparyaya. Which are just the opposite. Indriya artha, of sense objects. Artham, for the sake. Visam, poison. Ati, he eats. Amritam, nectar. Tyadgan, avoiding. Translation. That mortal who rejects you, his true self, dearmost friend and Lord, for the sake of sense objects, whose nature is just the opposite, refuses nectar, instead consumes poison. So please repeat. That mortal who rejects you, his true self, dearmost friend and Lord, for the sake of sense objects, whose nature is just the opposite, refuses nectar and instead consumes poison. Purport. The person described above is pitiable because he rejects that which is actually dear, the Lord, and accepts that which is not dear and is ungodly. Temporary sense gratification which leads to suffering and bewilderment. So Vishwanath Chakravarti, they're really short commentaries. I'll read them all here. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he who rejects you for the opposite, for what is not soul, not dear, and not the Lord, drinks poison in the form of sense objects, such as suns, etc. Jiva Goswami. Though I have taught him as guru, even now he rejects you. He is most lamentable. He is subject to death and should thus not reject the nectar. He is also punished by you for not worshiping you, since you are the Lord, you are the self, you are dear, and are the Lord, Ishvaram. Stronger and stronger reasons are given for worshiping him. But he rejects you. He does not worship you. He takes poison, rejecting nectar. This shows his lack of discrimination. Instead of Tayajan, sometimes Tayajet is seen. Sanat Goswami. This is further explained. The person who is not qualified to give up death, Martha, rejects you. The greatest benefactor, situated as Antaryami, Atmanam, the object of prema for the jiva, since you are the supreme Atma and should not be given up. Being the necessity of object of worship, who punishes a person for not worshiping Ishvaram. The list of descriptive terms is in order of increasing excellence as reason for worshiping the Lord. This person is without intelligence, drinking poison and rejecting nectar. Those who enjoy material objects always suffering and are never happy. So Om Aganda Timarandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chaksharomi Tamye Natai Shri Gurave Namaha. So this is verse is kind of a little bit eye-opening. number of things here. So that mortal who rejects you, and it's the lowercase his. It means we're actually, in a sense, rejecting ourselves because our true nature as spirit soul, we're accepting this bodily concept of life, this But Jiva Goswami puts it as a capital H. So it's a little, then you have the dearmost friend, and then you have the Lord. But Jiva Goswami puts it in a capital H, which is doubly rejecting Krishna. So it's just how this translated. And so I looked up this word. I mean, here we have rejection. Sometimes it could be a little bit different than fall down or turning away from the Supreme Lord. So there's different ways of characterizing this. This is pretty bold in the sense that rejection could be a very harsh term in a sect. It's very definitive. There's no room there for, it's definitely very clear. And then we have, Krishna as the dearmost friend. So we have these two things. But the word vishvajate was actually only this reject. I did a little search on folio, and only one time in the entire folio is that Sanskrit word is there, reject. And then, so let me look up reject. And in the book, Prabhupada's books, it's about 100 times the word reject is used. Not really a lot compared to how big the folio is. But I went through reject, there's this word called vish, reject. So it's a little bit different. It has an E instead of an A, and that's 14 times, and that is sometimes used as reject, sometimes giving up, not to employ, like one senses, should renounce or abandon. And then in one place that word is used is in the 10th canto, chapter 24, where Krishna, Nanda is talking to Krishna about Govardhan Leela. And just before the Govardhan Leela, he's explaining to Krishna why we have to do what we do before Krishna rejects all that. And Nanda says, this religious principle is based on sound tradition. Anyone who rejects it out of lust, enmity, fear, or greed will certainly fail to achieve good fortune. So he's presenting some good arguments, but Krishna defeats them all. And that same word here, another example, that what person who knows the truth would ever abandon your lotus feet? When you are ready to give your very self to peaceful sages who call nothing their own. So abandon is the word there that was been used in that sense. I mean, it's difficult enough to get people started in Krishna consciousness. I mean, most of society they reject it. And most of them is not so much reject it, either they have no time for it, they haven't been introduced to it, or they're not ready yet. So oftentimes when you're doing book distribution or Sankirtan or you're dealing with the public, you have people who tend to be a little bit more receptive. And then those people that had got no time whatsoever. If you're trying to do books, they don't, just immediately don't, want to give you any time whatsoever. I mean, I had a friend I grew up with, and we kind of like a friend, in the same neighborhood. We did pretty much everything, experienced things together for the first time, as kids going up through grammar school and high school. They were like hunting and fishing and, even maybe drinking the beer for the first time. This type of close friend, it was just my karma life and my upbringing is typically what a lot of typical boys, sports, all those things I engaged in, music. But then when I bought a Bhagavad Gita in a bookstore, this is later, we're about 20 years old, and I bought it, Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita in a bookstore, and I met him. I can't remember how it was arranged, but we met at some sandwich shop, and I brought the Bhagavad Gita with me. And I sat down and I had the Bhagavad Gita, and his first reaction didn't even open it. I'm not interested. That's the first thing. This is, but his father was an atheist, and he was brought up as an atheist. I mean, his father pounded that into him. So this is society that we live in, that people are educated and they're grown up in a particular way. Now, you can say, okay, he was probably had that disposition to be born in that particular family. Instead of being born pious, like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, if you're fortunate, you get born in a family of Brahmins. See, so he got into a family of atheists. Pretty much all of us have misfortune at birth, but obviously there's more pious and impious people in the material world. But this is the nature, his nature. Even till today, I saw him about maybe 3 or 4 years ago. He lives in Sanford, and he was calling me about some information about VA, but still the same consciousness. It hasn't, I think over time it would kind of soften up a little bit. But, it's just the way it is, and it's those type of people, there's, you just can't push it on them. Hey, it is what it is. You just let it go. But at the same time, that was a huge split in our relationship. And I went to a completely different direction. Our association pretty much never, completely diminished. So that's particularly life. But we see in society, most of people reject, in some instance, spiritual life. Or they might have spiritual life, but because they're too involved with family life, they have this economic pressure. They have to try to make some kind of, their goal in life is to make advancement economically or in their position, their work, and this, in a sense, consumes them. This becomes the goal of their life. And so they're not in a position where they can hear, it's the artha, kama, these things, and dharma. So, but even this idea that they believe in spirituality, it tends to be more impersonal than it does a personal God. I believe in spiritual, but I don't believe in God. So we hear, this is a big thing. And, but often we see, Prabhupada used the term that when one has jaundice, sweet things taste poisonous, And here in this verse, they're talking about drinking poison. The reality is, when we make a decision, and we are always making decisions, one is a complete rejection, and there are many people who've come to this movement of rejection. There's many, Prabhupada, initiated by Prabhupada, you can't really call them disciples, who actually reject Prabhupada. I mean, there's a number of them. There's one Vaishnavi, she wrote a book called Mind Rape of her experience in Krishna consciousness. Has been complete rejection. So in these conditions, these situations, they're completely drinking poison, and we know that they're just complete suffering. That's really what the material world offers. I mean, little glimpses of so-called happiness, but it's all mixed together, happiness and distress, So, I mean, I also was thinking that, does Krishna reject anybody? The opposite side. It was just like, he's just so merciful. He has so much compassion. He never even rejected Putana. Putana came to him, and he didn't reject, So he accepted her as his mother, So we have this situation where we turn away. And every single one of us is turned away at one point. And sometimes even now we struggle. Every time we lose our mind, we turn away even now, because it's not that we instantly become pure devotees. It's a process. It's a gradual process. And we're given a process by Srila Prabhupada in order to make spiritual advancement. And so this gradual process is also a process of detachment. So here comes in this renunciation, which is part of it. So the process of trying to achieve something, at the same time giving up something. It's gradual. We do that. But we're in a situation that's described. You have two birds sitting on a tree. It's described, an analogy. And we're one bird, and we're just looking at material nature, and the other bird is Krishna, is witnessing all of our activities. And so when are we going to turn around? See, he's waiting, right? Gopakumar in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, he made it to Vaikuntha, and he met Mahavishnu. And Vishnu was telling me, I kept wondering, when are you going to turn back around and look at me? You know, will it be this life? Will it be this life? And he said, I decided to intercede, you know, and he became his guru. He made arrangements for him to be born in Govardhan. Gopakumar was a boy, like 5 years old, and he became his spiritual master. So, in this way, but I think this, Krishna does that for everybody. And he reveals himself according to the extent that we approach him. He reciprocates accordingly. Of course, Prabhupada talks about him being in our heart as the Paramatma, and that and externally it's the Guru, internally it's Krishna. And the more we pay attention, the more we turn around and we look at that other individual, this personality, Krishna, the more he will approach us. And so we have, we have this fall down and we have this deviation at times, but these are just part of the process. It's a struggle. And of course, the more we stay in the association of the devotees, the more we read the books by the acharyas and hear their instructions, the easier that struggle becomes. It's still, at times, we have to deal with our own senses. We deal with our own mind, which is extremely difficult at times. And we have so much other influences from everything. And so we have to control what influences we get. And primarily, those best influences come with the association of devotees. And we even had, lately we've had a number of sannyasis struggle. And sannyasis who've been in the movement for a very long time. And sometimes it's eye-opening. And it has really nothing to do with, their personality in a sense, whether they're a liberal or conservative, because if you really look closely, it's pretty much equal across the board of these, if you look at all the ones that struggle. So what is that impetus that causes one to struggle like this? Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, that he says, Arjuna asked him, it says, O descendant of Vishnu, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? And Krishna says, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material modes of passion and later transformed into wrath, which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of the world. So see, this is the problem for everybody. It's the same issue that enters every single individual. Some people express themselves, they're boldly or not so passionately or softly, but ultimately we're all subject to be victimized by Maya equally. Her force is pretty powerful. So, Krishna says, when one contemplates the objects of the senses, they develop an attachment. From attachment comes lust. From lust comes anger. From anger comes bewilderment of memory. From bewilderment of memory is delusion. And from delusion, one loses one's intelligence. And when we lose our intelligence, we fall down into the material pool. So this is the process that happens. So we all experience this, but at some time in this process, we have to check ourselves, like the tortoise has to bring the limbs back into the shell. and make that correction. So also part of that is to build a fence around us, a protective fence. That protective fence is the Vaishnavas. It's just, might as well forget it. It's so difficult anyway that if you think we can do it without, the Prabhupada tells us over and over again, that without the association of devotees, it's difficult. So you have to get that somehow, some way. So, and of course, Krishna is very merciful again. He said, even if one commits the most abominable action, if he is engaged in devotional service, he's considered to be saintly because he's properly situated with determination. So oftentimes this is described as a mistake. If you make a mistake, but then devotees can be very compassionate. And of course, we tend, due to our own false egos, we tend to be more compassionate to people we like, as opposed to being compassionate to somebody maybe not so, familiar, close to us, or, I hate to use the word political, but there is different. And diversity is actually very good for the society. Having people who are very conservative, having people who are very liberal, to a certain extent, because the philosophy is brought out and realizations a little bit differently. So diversity can be very good because the society is made up of people from material life, from all types of diverse places. So having preachers, especially experienced preachers who also are diverse, makes it easier to deal with all these individuals. If everybody can feel like they have a place, they have a home. See, so being made welcome is very important. So diversity is very important. So Sanatana Goswami in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita also said that we're never going to know that time when we first turned away. We're never going to remember it. There's so many millions and billions of births. Just forget it. We can't remember our previous lives. We can't even we have enough problems dealing with the one we have in front of us. And having all that dumped on us, Of course, we'd probably like to remember all the good stuff, but it isn't good stuff. It's misery, material life. So, but you're never going to forget, he says, that moment you turn back. When we, picked up a book, somebody gave us a book, we heard a kirtan. In this life, we can all go back to that moment and remember where that change happened. Now, there's a verse, we're talking about our dearmost friend, this purport, and Lord. And, of course, Prabhupada gave us complete Godhead, with the Bhagavatam. So everything is there. We get a complete picture, of Krishna. And so in that process, we have the goal, sadhya. And the process to attain that goal is sadhana, the means to attain it. So we're on the Vaidhi process, So in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, chapter 28, text 53, Puranjana becomes a woman in his next life. So the translation says, the Brahmin continued, my dear friend, even though you cannot immediately recognize me, can't you remember that in the past you had a very intimate friend? Unfortunately, you gave up my company and accepted the position as an enjoyer in this material world. This is our lot, all of us. This is everybody. And this is an allegory that for us to learn from. This is an allegory story. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his comments, he makes it very clear. He said that this means that the jiva gave up the association of the Lord at the beginning of the universe. At the beginning of this universe is when we gave it up. And so Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami, he brings out the point that he tells us that that the living entity is supremely pure. And so in this purport, it talks about we also reject that aspect of us. We reject us, we reject Krishna, because we want to accept poison. We want to be covered over. We don't accept our true nature, which is initially it's marginal energy, it's Santyarash. It's neutral. Okay, so let's read some of the purport, and then I want to read, if we got time, maybe not, some of the purport, Prabhupada's purport on the previous verse of this, what he says here. Okay, so Prabhupada here, because as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 27, O sign of Bharat, Arjuna, O conqueror of foe, all living entities are born in delusion, overcome by the dualities of desire and hate. This is an explanation how the living entity falls in this material world. In the spiritual world, there is no duality, nor is there hate. The Supreme Personality of Godhead expands himself into many in order to enjoy bliss more and more. The Supreme Lord expands himself in different categories, as mentioned in the Varaha Purana. He expands himself in Vishnu Tattva, the living Vishnu Tattva, the Svamsa expansion, and in his marginal energy, the Vimanamsa, or the living entity. These expanded living entities are innumerable, just as the minute particles of sunshine are innumerable expansions of the sun. The Vimanamsa expansions, the marginal potency of the Lord, are the living entities. When the living entities desire to enjoy themselves, they develop a consciousness of duality and come to hate the service of the Lord. In this way, the living entities fall down in the material world. So this is the cycle we have been in. This is us, that we, in a sense, reject. I don't would say for devotees who struggle, that word, I wouldn't use that word reject. It's a struggle. Once you've turned back, Krishna's there to help. And then that's that purport that Prabhupada, in the previous verse, Prabhupada brings this home. Any questions? I mean, anybody want to make any comments? Anything? Uh-huh. Yeah. Right.
I was thinking of relating it to the Upadesha. Read the verse, Atyahara prayasas cha, because these are different signs of over-endeavoring, over-collecting, signs of mode of passion. So that, in other words, what precedes a fall down is some passionate activity or passionate consciousness. You know, that's what I got from. Thank you for reading that verse of the Bhagavad Gita, because I mean, it just struck me when I heard that. So one has to be very careful of this passionate consciousness. You know, passionate also means when we start criticizing Vaishnavas, thinking that we're better than them. You know, it's just that's also passion, like politics, entering into politics. So there's so many varieties of passion, but that later on turns to lust. And so that's the real danger, to avoid that passionate mentality. Anyway.
So you get yourself into trouble. First step is passion.
So basing this realization I just had when Maharaj was speaking now, that actually the passion, it's really fall down, but we don't see it. We just don't see it. So we think, oh, you know, and it can be very interesting. I remember a big book distributor who's no longer with us, who was so good, but they were so passionate and so proud of how good they were that at one point they were a disciple of one of Prabhupada's disciples. They actually went to the guru and said, you know, it's because of me that you can build this building.
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Enam Kanvanta Maravindanalaya Taksham Marhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandar Agom Vidamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasa Sakalem Priya Priti Manti Vasyanti Panti Kayanti Chiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami 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 Govindam.
Namaho Mishanupajaya Krishna Pastaya Mutale Shimate Bhakti Vedanta Tamanichi Namaday Namaste. Saraswati Devi. Gauravani Macha. Neke Nivasesha. Shunavadeva Satya. There's a ton and hay. Neke Nivasesha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Sivasari Gaura Vrinda Krishna Chaitanya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Sivasari Gaura Vrinda Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Sivasari Gaura Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Ramba, Hare Ate. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Narad, Hagarokanana, Nagarokanana, Dragate. Narad, Hagarokanana, Nagarokanana, Dragate. Radhe, 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 Radhe. Radhe, 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 Radhe. Jai.
We like to wish Bir Krishna Maharaj to Europe. He's leaving today, and so bon voyage, Maharaj. Arrivederci. As we try other languages here, but ciao. Okay. Chaito darpana marjanam nirvapanam Shreya kaira yajanitaranam Vijavadu jivanam Anandam buddhi vardhanam. Red, white, and blue. Sarvatma snapanam Paramvijayate Shri Krishna Sartanam Nam Namakari Bahada Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrapitani Amita Smaranena Kala Etadrishita Vakripa Bhagavan Mamapi Duradaiva Midrishami Hajjani Nanuraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Suhishuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Va Jagadisha Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmani Ishvare Bhavatad Bhaktir Ohaitaki Twai Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishame Bhavam Budao Kripayata Vabada Pankaja Stita Duli Sadrashim Vichintayam Nayanam Gladashu Daraya Varanam Gadgadurudai Gira Pulakarnishitam Vabukada Tavanamagrama Vishati Yugayatam Namishena Chakshusha Pravishayatam Shunayatam Jagat Sarvam Govindam Virahename Ashlishyava Padamritam Manastumam Adarshanam Marmahato Karotiva Yatatatava Vidadatulam Patomat Prananatastusa Eva Napara. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you've invested all your transcendental energies. They are not